Well, it seems like there have been rumors going around about Microsoft Studios and the fact that they might be coming out with brand new Transformers games sometime in the future. And that's something that sounds very interesting to say the least. But the thing about that is, I'm not exactly sure whether or not the Transformers series is necessarily a huge attraction in relation to video games. I'm not saying that some of the past Transformer games are not good because you look at like some of the older Transformer video games that came out like back in the early teens, like War on Cybertron, Fall of Cybertron, and Rise of Dark Spark. Um, those games are actually like really good. The Fall of Cybertron game is something that I feel is underrated because that game had 10-player online, multiplayer game mode. It had a 4-player online co-op mode, had a single player game mode, and that was a game that came out like 12 years ago. So that was over a decade ago. And during that time period, it felt like online multiplayer gameplay was like at its peak, especially during the late, 2000s, early teens. And I feel like, the Transformer games from that time period are ones that got overlooked. I mean, you look at War for Cybertron, that was a game that also had like, 10-player online multiplayer gameplay and also had like a co op campaign mode that featured like three players simultaneously. And, those are games that I feel like, deserve, remakes for current generation game systems because I believe those games came out during the PS3, Xbox 360 era. And if we're going to get, new games like within the Transformer series, then I feel like, the online multiplayer, gameplay that was present back in those older games, they need to make a return because those were huge parts of what made those games huge attractions. But as far as the new Transformer games that Microsoft Studios are working on, there's not much known about it other than the fact that they received new online ratings, and I believe both of them are PG and it includes mild violence. And aside from that, like I don't think those two games even have official titles or anything. There have been no trailers or no gameplay videos or anything like that, and we don't even know when they're coming out. We don't know if it's going to come out in 2024 or 2025 or even later than that because 2024 is almost over for the most part because I think we're in the third quarter of the year. And there hasn't been any like big announcements or anything like that regarding Transformer games coming out in 2024 or anything like that. But if we do get a Transformer game or two Transformer games before the end of 2024, that would be a pleasant surprise. But the thing is, like even then, the Transformers video games are not nearly as popular as the movies because like the movies seem to draw more attention, and I feel like the Transformer movies, for the most part, they've been around longer than the video games, or they've been around as long as the video games, just that more people pay attention to the movies. And as far as the movies are concerned, I feel like for the most part, they peaked during the late 2000s and throughout like most of the teens decade. A lot of people go on record and tell you that the Bumblebee movie from 2018 was probably one of the best, along with the Transformer movies from 2007. That's one that's really memorable, and I think that's because I believe Megan Fox was featured in that one, and yeah, like like for the most part, I feel like after like Transformers Dark Moon or Age of Extinction that came out in like 2011 and 2014. After that, it seemed like people kind of like tuned out of Transformers for the most part. And I remember Transformers Rise of the Beast coming out this past year in 2023 because I believe I saw it like last summer. That was actually a pretty decent movie, not quite on the same level as some of the older Transformer movies, but they're still like very fun to watch for the most part. And I do feel that the video game series, still continuing and still being somewhat relevant after all this time is something that's really impressive. And I do feel like the Transformer video games could could definitely appeal to casuals and market it the right way and includes the right features in terms of like, multiplayer gameplay, in terms of having a compelling campaign mode and all that stuff. But overall, I still feel like the video game series in relation to Transformers is something that's only going to appeal to a niche audience. So I'm not, counting on those two games having, massive like commercial successes or anything like that. I'm not exactly sure if we're going to get any new Transformer movies anytime in the near future, but I still feel like we're still going to get movies regardless because at this point, the franchise is legendary and it's something that even though like it seems to appeal to a niche audience, it's something that a lot of casuals know about and it's something that people will pay to see whether or not it'll be better than some of the older movies or whether or not the director and the writers can match the excitement of some of the older movies from the late 2000s and the movies that came out during the teens decade. But as far as the upcoming two video games are concerned, um, I'm excited to learn more about it in the future. Hopefully, we learn more about them before the end of 2024. But but yeah, I do feel like Transformers, the video game series, is one that doesn't get enough credit, and I do feel like these two games, um, they have the potential to, I guess, do at least a mill or two in terms of sales, depending on, how it's marketed, depending on what features are included. And and hopefully this is something that's going to lead to, I guess, more things happening later down the line, like the older Transformer games like from the early teens getting remastered because those are games that a lot of people are fond of. And I do feel that, Transformers is something that will continue to like be an attraction to like a niche audience of gamers, but at the same time, it'll remain a main attraction to casuals and those who are familiar with the series, and for those who grew up, loving this series throughout the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and even the teens decade.